Hi, it's Amory, and I want to talk to you this week about peer feedback. So, you will be giving and getting feedback from your peers and to your peers on your primary projects for this class. So, not for the small assignments that you do, not for your growth journals, but for the things that you're doing, like your set of instructions, your report, your proposal, etc. And this is a commonly used practice in not just English classrooms around the world, but also in places of employment. When I was a technical and marketing writer, I certainly relied on the feedback of my peers to help me see things that I had missed, to help me consider points of view that I hadn't thought about, and just to do a final proof before I sent my drafts out to the wider world. So I want to talk you through the PowerPoint that I have in this week's folder. And just if you've never done a peer review or it's been a while, these are just some refreshers. So as I mentioned, you'll be doing this for all of your major projects in this class, and you will likely do it if you're taking other communications-based courses like English composition or a literature course, or even a business writing course. So as you are looking at a draft from a peer, remember that as the reviewer, you have a couple of jobs, and that is to be a kind human first and foremost. But that is not to say that you cannot give constructive feedback. So there's a difference between this doesn't make sense or I don't like this part and saying I got confused here or this section feels unnecessary or like you went off topic. So you are critiquing the work, so the page in front of you, the words in front of you, and not the person. Because writing is a production of our own thoughts and mind, and oftentimes reflects our own experiences and beliefs, we as the writers can get a little bit defensive. We can feel as though we are being attacked. And it does take some time and practice to shield yourself from that. There are certainly peer reviewers who I have in my life where I know are a little more critical and who are going to really look for everything and maybe even push me to try harder or to try something different. I don't always approach those with open, loving arms, but I also know that they make me a better writer and a better thinker. So it is your job as the peer reviewer, so the person looking at your peer's draft, to give your perspective. You are trying to help your peer become a better writer, a better communicator. As the person receiving feedback, it's your job to try not to take it personally. So they might spot things that you never thought of. They might get confused in places that you thought were quite clear. And as the writer, you get to choose the feedback that you accept and the feedback that you reject. So when you are looking at someone's draft, I do have a sheet for you that is attached in the assignment area that has some yes, no, not yet questions to it. So those are just simple mark, is it doing this yet or not yet? And then I have a couple specific questions at the bottom that ask you to write a little bit more. Remember that we are all practicing humans. We are all practicing writers. And if you see a piece of writing that maybe is not as strong as others, you don't need to point that out, but you can help that person get a little bit stronger. So this is also called peer review, peer critique, peer editing, and it is a way for you to get and receive feedback that is beyond your own mind. And this, again, as I said at the beginning, is very common in the workplace and in the educational system. We often don't just write it ourselves and then send it out for a wide audience, especially if I'm sending an email or report to the administration or the hundreds of people who are in the college. I want somebody else to look at it before I press send, just to make sure that I'm clear, that my tone is appropriate, and that I'm not getting anything wrong. You are to give your honest feedback. So if you feel like the introduction goes on too long, or it seems a little bit silly, or the tone doesn't seem appropriate for the topic, you can say those things, but try to say them in a way that, for me, your tone seems a little too unserious for the topic of how to prepare a body for a mortuary, for instance. You're giving advice based on your own personal experience. So some of you might have really strong grammar, sentence, spelling mechanic skills and you feel really good about those things and you can really spot them, while others of you might feel like I know how to write really striking, simple sentences and I can help my peer strengthen theirs as well. And as I mentioned, you get to choose whether you take or reject the feedback you're given. So you might get a piece of feedback from one person that's like, everything looks great, I can't imagine changing anything. And another person who gives you a 16-point bulleted sheet of things that you should change. You get to decide as the writer what to reject and what to accept. So again, as you are giving feedback, be kind, but also be constructive. It's not very helpful when I ask for feedback for people to say, I don't get it, or I don't have any feedback for you, or everything looks great, or, oh gosh, I wish I could do that. Um, it's nice to hear, but at the same time, it doesn't help me grow. Use I statements instead of you're confusing or you confused me here. You say, I got confused when you went from step 2 to step 3, or I feel like your introduction is really attention getting and I wouldn't change anything. Try to be as specific as you can. So you're looking at, things like the overall content. Is everything clear? And if there are areas that are not, don't just say, I got confused while reading it, but again, point to the specific area. If possible, you are in a discussion board here. Ask questions of each other, like, can you tell me more about step 3? Or can you expand, or can you define what this is? As somebody who's never done chainmail before, I don't know some of the terms that you're using. Can you define those for us? Offer advice. You do not have to edit or fix the person's writing, but you are pointing out things that they can be taking forward into their final draft to improve upon. And it's not your job to make the writer sound like you. We all have our own unique writing styles, and one person's serious might be some person's formal or informal. And we don't necessarily want to change the character of the person writing, but we might want to make the writing a little bit more approachable for a broader or generalized audience. So things that I want you to do in your peer review is to focus on major components. So if steps are confusing, if there are terms that are not clear or not defined, if the assignment is just way off track, they're not even doing the same assignment as was assigned or that you think you're doing, tell them that. If the tone seems maybe too sarcastic or too arrogant even, let them know those things. If you feel like a step really needs a visual, like I could really use a picture here because I get really confused, tell them that. The minor stuff is the editing of spelling, grammar, punctuation. Those are things that can often be improved upon a final spell check, edit check, running it through something like that, or going to the Learning Commons. So your primary draft in peer review is to work on the big things, the big glaring mistakes, holes, confusions in the writing, and not so much the smaller stuff. So you get to decide again what feedback you want to accept. If you're unsure, you can certainly ask me. It's okay to say, I appreciate your feedback. I'll think about that, and do as you wish with the feedback. Ask for the feedback that you want. If you want somebody, you're like, I'm struggling with how to end this. I don't know. I'm bad at conclusions, or I don't feel strong in my conclusions. Can you help me? You can specifically say that. As you receive your feedback, listen or read with an open mind and ask questions if you're unclear. Your peer reviewer is a real reader, and you have chosen a topic that presumably you have a lot of feedback or a lot of skill or knowledge in. So I might, as an example, choose how to pack lightly for a trip. I've done quite a bit of traveling, and I try not to take much more than a backpack or a carry-on, I should say. And so I have had people in school and in personal life who are like, can you teach me how to do that? I don't know how to do that for a 2-week trip. How do you do it? So I have that knowledge because I've done it multiple times, and you will have the knowledge because you probably picked a topic that you're really good at. But chances are somebody who's reading your work hasn't done that thing and doesn't have that same level of knowledge. So you might be making assumptions about what your audience knows that an average general reader would not. I remember reading a student's set of instructions on something relating to golf. I have no golf interest or experience whatsoever. It's not a sport that really does much for me. So sorry if it does for you. But there are terms in it that I don't know, don't understand, and would either need a definition or a picture or both to help it become more clear. So think about those things as you go into this peer review process. Again, you'll be doing it for all the major projects in this class. Remember that you have these additional resources available to you. So the Learning Commons, which is on the La Crosse campus in the Student Success Building on the second floor. There are writing tutors there multiple hours per week. Check the calendar online. You have me, and the Learning Commons also has the Online Writing Center, which I have linked various places in Blackboard. And then using tools like Words Editor, Grammarly, even running your final draft or your rough draft through AI to like, can you help me look for spelling, grammar, and mechanical errors? That's a fine usage of AI. So I hope that helps. And this PowerPoint is linked in this week's folder. So take a look at that. And as always, if you have questions, please do let me know. I hope you're all doing well, and I look forward to looking at your final submissions. Take care, everybody.